I'm sorry. The person you called cannot be reached now.
Listen, I'm not really sure why you haven't called me back. You are calling me back, right? Just call me back. You've got my number. We'll talk soon. I hope you have
No, we'll go to Greenblatt's because Daughter's Deli closes early. I haven't been. My brother went.
Greenblatt's is, I think, the freshest deli I've been to in Los Angeles. You guys ready?
Factors is good.
Where?
Factors.
You need to see a doctor.
Okay, and I want to welcome everybody to.
No taste buds.
I want to welcome everyone to I want to welcome everybody to Larry Klayman for Everyone, and this is going to be rough to have like one of those things where, because we're just three Jews sitting in a room talking about, prior to the show, about our favorite delicatessen in Los Angeles, and any good Jew that's from New York City looks at most delicatessens out here for...
You're lucky I don't have my phone, because I would then send you the Nora Ephron piece from the New Yorker talking about Langer's as having the best pastrami in the nation. And it's the only other place, with the exception of Katz on Houston in New York, that hand cuts the pastrami.
Yeah, but am I wrong? But aren't the delis in New York now run by non-Jews? I mean, at least in L.A., they're still run by Jews. Not that it matters, but...
Well, obviously,
obviously
it does matter.
If you
Larry.
get au jus, you have to get it from a Jew.
But I'd like to welcome to everybody to Larry Klayman for Everyone. And Larry Klayman is a lawyer and who is for everyone. And I think I met Larry about 3 years ago. I met him at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It sounds so posh, but it wasn't. It was Larry, myself, and Ben Stein. I had never met Larry before, and Larry was talking about to Ben and myself about the cases he was dealing with, and Lewis, he after we got done meeting, Ben and I were both like, oh, this is an interesting guy, and Larry handed us his books, and not his book Whore, but he handed us Whores. He handed us
more than one.
6 books
a piece.
Well, yeah, he gave each of us 6 books of every single essay and article he's ever written.
So he's like a black Muslim convict. He had the shopping cart with the wobbly wheel, and he brought that into the Beverly Hills Hotel.
My multi-volume work. Essays of a Mad Man.
Did you actually bring it into the hotel, or did you give it to us after?
No, I left it at the front desk.
You left it at the front desk.
I didn't want to scare you.
And let me.
That's different. I like my version with the shopping carts that he got from CVS.
It's a better version. And I remember after I met him, I started Googling Larry, and I started reading some of the stuff, and I was so intrigued. Not necessarily because I agreed with everything you had said, or I was so fascinated. I looked at this guy sort of like a modern day Wyatt Earp of lawyers that's willing to take the shot and defend people that it's easy not to defend. It's easy to defend people that, hey, you're getting paid tons of money from that person, or or everybody in the country believes in that same cause. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is like a really cool guy that I want to get to know. And I met Lewis with our common friend Ashley Hamilton, who's sadly is sick tonight and was supposed to be here, but we met at Greenblatt's Deli, one of the best delis in Los Angeles. And I remember sitting there, and we had just met, and there's this certain thing when you think differently than the rest of the people in Los Angeles do, when you meet somebody that doesn't necessarily think exactly like you, like Larry and myself, or like Lewis and myself.
Nobody thinks exactly
like. But I remember thinking there's a certain... And people that don't live on the left coast don't realize that when you think differently, and it doesn't necessarily have to be politically, it could just be that you just think differently, whether it's comedically, whether it's politically. When you meet, there's a real isolation out here. It's a breathtaking isolation. It's hard to find a girlfriend if you're not married. If it's hard to find guy friends in the sense, because everybody's scared to actually be open and honest. And Lewis and I met that night. We hit it off. And I remember thinking when I met Larry, I said to myself, man, this guy, we have to bring you into the two, you have to be relevant. You have to be as relevant as you were to the Clintons. Now is an even more important time for somebody of you that thinks like you do to become the rabbi to the priest to, since you're a Messianic Jew, you go both,
High priest.
You're a high priest. And I started reading about you in Judicial Watch, which is, an organization that you started that you don't belong to anymore, but which is used every night on Fox News, and now you started Freedom Watch.
Well, the way I fashion myself, you asked me in another show how I describe myself. And I'm not equating myself to John Adams. I'm not as great as John Adams, okay? But John Adams took unpopular cases. He almost lost his law practice. He did lose his law practice defending the British troops on Boston Common when they were provoked and the colonialists, caused them to shoot at them and kill some of them. And that's how I see myself, is that I have to believe in something. I always have to have a cause. I have to constantly try to change things. And you're born with that, really.
Yeah.
And you can't escape it. And back in 2003, I ran for the U.S. Senate in Florida. That's my home state. And I really didn't like it, okay, because I'm better from the outside. I didn't like mouthing the same nonsense over and over again. It got very, very boring. And I don't know what I would have done if I was in the Senate with 199 other senators, to drive me insane. So, I'm doing what I love to do, but I get frustrated because I see what's going on today, and I see these federal judges who are 99.9% political hacks that have been put there because of political patronage, and they don't have the courage to do what needs to be done on both sides of the political aisle.
And Lewis, I got to tell you, one of the funniest and most interesting things that I love about Lewis is that Lewis posts on Facebook constantly, or he used to, at least when I was still on Facebook, and they are some of the most incendiary comments you'll have ever read to some, and I find myself cracking up to his posts, and this is after we met that night, and I remember thinking to myself, we love to sometimes call people snowflakes, right? People that get offended by everything. And there's a difference between being offended by everything and the feeling of isolation. And I want people that are listening, I want them to know that you could be isolated and it's okay to think differently. You represent George Zimmerman, which you were trending on a few weeks ago, big time on Google, that you sued them for $100 million. You're suing them for $100 million. And I swear to God, I'm talking to Ben Stein in the car on our trips out of the desert, and he goes, "Why not $1 billion?" And that was his comment. Why $100 million? And I remember thinking to myself, I know why you're defending George Zimmerman, because it's not popular.
Well, you take the heat for that, Judah, is that when I did that, ABC, which was obviously influenced by George Stephanopoulos on his show, they smeared me. During the Clinton era, I got a finding that George Stephanopoulos had lied under oath by Judge Royce Lamberth.
Right.
Stephanopoulos hates me. He's the nastiest person I've ever encountered.
Didn't you sue him for something?
Well, I probably did. I've
for his driver's license or something.
No, not that. I mean, look, the guy's a midget, okay, both intellectually and otherwise.
Yes.
And they smeared me on ABC. Most people understood why I brought the case for Zimmerman. I explained it to them, and I can explain it more in this show or another show. But ABC comes out and says the claimant has a history of suing black lawmakers. You know how many black lawmakers I've sued in my entire life? One.
No.
Barack Obama.
And you won.
Yeah, I mean, I won the NSA case. That's the biggest case I ever won for the mass surveillance. That was against Obama, Claimant versus Obama. It's a famous case. So, that's how they smear you, and that's what we were talking about in the last show, is that you have to be able to take the heat in the kitchen, or as Justice Clarence Thomas once told me, if you're in Washington, you have to be prepared to get cut. I mean, if you're not prepared for battle, then get out. And that's what I love about this president. He takes it, and he comes back even stronger, like the Energizer Bunny. President Trump, that is.
Yeah, and I want people to understand this isn't a show, and it's really hard these days, Lewis. It's very hard, it's very hard. You get labeled with a party. I'm a person.
Team R, Team D.
Team R, Team D, and I always say, independents in Los Angeles are just Republicans in the closet, and I don't agree with libertarianism, and for the most part in many ways. And it's very hard. We're a lot of people that don't have a party. And if you think a certain way, you're automatically the R. If you think this way, you're automatically the D. And the other night, the Golden Globes were on. Ricky Gervais came out. He tore a new one into the Hollywood elite, like he worse than he has ever done before, and automatically right away he gets labeled with the R. And it's worse than Republican. He got called a right winger.
Who called him that?
All over Twitter. One of the heads of Variety wrote it down, started tweeting at him. And the funniest thing about his tweet was he's this eloquent guy, this intelligentsia goes, and he goes, and it's something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, it was just stupid. That's how he ended the tweet. Like it couldn't have been, he was just stupid. And I don't know what Ricky Gervais thinks. I don't really, but
again, this is the tribalism. You don't just see this here in Los Angeles. You see this in any city. You see it online all the time, where if you offer a dissenting opinion and you do so in a civil way, there's no pejoratives, there's no ad hominem. You simply disagree in principle, on point about a specific issue. People will attack you because you have deviated from party orthodoxy. If you're part of Team R, then you have to support the party down the line, regardless of philosophy or deviations in philosophy. And the same applies to people on the left or liberals, increasingly more leftists than liberals because liberals are being crowded out. So it's less a matter of the right or left trying to co-opt this or that person. I know those things happen. It's more a matter of independence, intellectual independence. This is what you believe. You can say it in a funny way, or you can intend to say it in a funny way, or you can say it, and that's what you believe. And some people on the right may be attracted to it. More people on the right may be attracted to it. And in another instance, those same people will say, he's let me down. He used to be funny. No, you happen to have agreed with his position on something that he constructed as a joke. But if you deconstruct what he said, what makes it funny are the details. He doesn't simply say, well, you're a bunch of ignorant millionaires and billionaires. No, he said most of you have spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. Is it, right. So it was what, 16?
I think that's her name. Yeah. And
the other details that make the joke.
And to that point, Larry, if you ever, anybody were to wiki Larry or Google Larry, it's amazing how Wikipedia in the last year has your Wikipedia page, because they used to blame you for the chaos in the discourse in Washington D.C. because you had sued the Clintons over 30 times.
Yeah, they said I invented it.
You invented the discourse. That's no longer there. It's no longer written in his wiki page. Why is that? Because there's a certain romanticism to the guy that brought discourse to Washington, D.C. Now, all of a sudden, it's basically like you're looking at David Duke's wiki page, and I know Larry, and I know he's not David Duke. And, one of the things that, of his famous cases is he sued the Cheney. You sued Dick Cheney, right? You sued,
among others.
You sued the Bush administration.
I sued Tom DeLay.
Larry is an equal opportunity. It's okay. It's
Obama calling.
They're listening, and Larry is an equal opportunity. I think it's a good
offender.
Time.
Offender.
He's a
By the way, because these people do exist, who volunteers to be a Wikipedia editor?
But who is the one that actually is...
Well, let's explain Wikipedia, okay? Anybody can throw any crap they want up on Wikipedia. You take it down, it goes back up, okay? It'll stop ringing. In fact, this number is unlisted, so I don't know who's calling. Maybe it's some hacker.
Yeah, they're calling.
Some upset former client or something like that. But I've had a few weirdos in my time.
This is the Jim Rockford moment, by the way, where I want to hear the voicemail.
Well, one time...
I really want to hear the voicemail being like, Larry, I want to sue the cats.
Well, one time I was on, believe it or not, you were talking about Tucker Carlson before, and I was on Crossfire when they used to have that on CNN with Tucker.
Great, one of the best shows.
Tucker, by the way, is quite a two-faced piece of work.
Yeah.
Okay. And, he was criticizing me for all the cases I had brought against the Clintons because he wanted to be on the liberal CNN and he was a host. And I get a call in the middle. I left my cell phone on. Okay, so I picked it up. And he says, "Who is that?" And I said, "Well, I think it's Hillary Clinton calling. She wants to apologize, So these things happen. Sometimes you use the moment, tell a joke. Actually, it wasn't that funny, but it was spontaneous.
But and yet this is day. And I don't know who is the editor. I don't know I don't know how you get a wiki page. Obviously, Larry is deserves a wiki page, but I don't know who's editing it. And I've noticed in the last year, whoever is editing his wiki page, has literally torn you to where you could sue them shreds.
Well, you know what's funny? I mean, there's a number of people there, and this is how it works in reverse. We were talking about that earlier, is that there's a reaction to this kind of a political assassination when people see it. They understand it. But when people attack you like that, you actually get a lot of fans. And I remember one person, I had a case, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a despicable bunch of atheists, ultra-leftists, wrote an article about how pathological I was as a litigator.
Yeah, that's in there. That's in your wiki page.
Right. So I got so many compliments, from gee, Larry, we need a pathological litigator. Yeah. We need somebody that's going to go all out. Or when Clinton accused me through James Carville of, quote, suing my own mother. They didn't know the story. And
I want to save that. I want to save that reveal.
Yeah, no, let me just give it briefly. I did that because my stepdad and my mother had dementia and later Alzheimer's, took advantage of her, and they stole all of my grandmother's money as she was dying, and they abandoned her. I stood there for my grandmother. I took the heat, and the Clintons smeared me with it, and then Chris Matthews, and at that time Charles Grodin had the show, on CNBC, and I became the worst person of the week, just because they took that hook, line, and sinker. And I demanded to go on. I explained the story, and both of them said, "Larry, we understand. You did the right thing. You stood there for your grandmother." So when people attack you like that, they can see through that if they're smart.
The problem is most people believe what they see online. If it's Wikipedia, it's got to be the truth. I mean, I don't know when Wikipedia became the source for people's lives.
You can get lost in a Wikipedia wormhole. I have.
Yeah.
But it's the pages on really esoteric stuff, high-level math and science, which already is a separate language. That's where I want mathematicians and physicists and scientists in general to say, yeah, this is right, or it's wrong. Because, again, I have no idea who's editing this. And Philip Roth, the late Philip Roth, had to publicly post, he did this through the New Yorker, because his requests to the powers that be at Wikipedia went unanswered. He said, there's erroneous information on my page, and I've tried to have this corrected several times, and it's gone uncorrected. So he went so far as to use the New Yorker as a forum to post this open letter, and ultimately it was changed. But when you have a personality like that saying, "No, this didn't happen. Yeah. This didn't happen," or "You're taking this from one of my novels," or this information you have is wrong, and I can substantiate it. It speaks to this phenomenon that is Wikipedia.
Let's use this as a transition to get to what they're doing to Trump today with regard to Iran.
Yeah.
Okay. The smear jobs that are coming out, both from the Democratic left and also from the rhinos in the Republican Party that have always wanted to stick a knife in Trump's back. And they see vulnerability now through impeachment, through people like Rand Paul and others who try to make nicey nice with the president, but when they get the chance, they want to stick the knife in the back. Or Mike Lee, he's probably buddies with Mitt Romney from Utah. So
by way of Massachusetts.
By way of Massachusetts.
By way of Michigan.
By way of Canada.
By way of Mexico.
Yeah, right. Someone who put his dog in a glass case on the top of the car.
I know, but that's Gail Collins' big thing at the New York Times, and I don't condone it, but I just can't stand Gail Collins. So I think there are so many other reasons
I want
to condemn Mitt Romney.
Just what you brought up, I want to. It's a very interesting thing. Donald Trump, love him, hate him, whatever you want. He brought something to a party that needed it. It was a party craving no more Mitt Romneys. It was a party craving separation.
No more Bushes.
No more Bushes. No more nation building. No more Bill Kristols of the world. It was a party that was craving somebody. Anybody, really. And that's what
Anybody who would tell the truth as they saw it. Yeah. Because it's not even have to be the truth, but if you say what you believe, like we were talking about with Chris Hitchens in the earlier show, you can respect that, okay? But you listen to the bullshit coming out of Washington, you know that they don't even believe this stuff. They just make it up because it's positioning, it's power, it's money, and it's their own ego.
But this is what's going on right now with the Soleimani guy is one of the most incredible things I have ever seen in my life. Because take party out of the equation. Let's all agree in here. When they killed Osama bin Laden, I want to have a vote. Good thing?
Well, I'm not sure they killed Osama bin Laden.
If they did kill Osama bin Laden...
I think he died of natural causes. I think this was a concoction of Obama to get reelected.
Okay.
Why didn't we see the body? Why was it dumped in the ocean immediately?
That's a very good point for a different show. Take that out of the equation.
Well, they all look the same. I mean...
He could have been one of his brothers, but one of his 100 brothers. But anyways, getting back to it, let's say we're going on what the news told us and Osama bin Laden was killed that night by that guy that's constantly on Fox News.
Yeah, do you believe that he's still alive?
Right, but okay.
Walking down the streets of New York? If he really killed Osama bin Laden, don't you think he'd be gone by now?
Yes, but my question to you is it agreed that if forget about your thoughts on it, I'm not going to disagree with you, that it's a good thing that he died. That
he's dead.
That he's dead. There's none of us have issues that Obama, if it happened, killed Osama.
What I find very difficult to believe is that the SEALs, who were still dressed as astronauts from the moon landing, were able to execute that raid and get back in the dune buggy, cross into Afghani.
I choose him,
territory.
Larry, to argue my anti-conspiracy stuff. He is gonna he is, but anyway. But you get what I'm saying. We were all in favor. If that were what really happened,
you're right.
We didn't sit Shiva.
A little diversion.
We didn't sit Shiva. We there was no party that night. We were happy. Right. If the stock market went up, you were happy. Nobody wants to see, except for Bill Maher, in order for Trump to lose, you have to, he wants a recession to happen. I never wanted to see people being homeless and on food lines when Obama was president. There are certain times, no matter what party, no matter what, if somebody that has thousands upon thousands of lives on blood, on just dripping from their body, that we as a country at a certain moment should go, it's a good thing. I could go along with that. But no, we don't. We live in the time right now where these Congress, where the Senate, where the far left, just like at a certain point in the past where the far right held this country hostage, the far left is holding a lot of people hostage that they can't even say it's a good... They're at the point where I don't know, the next Democratic debate, there's going to be one of them that says, I really mourn the loss of ISIS. Maybe we shouldn't have gone so hard.
I was watching MSNBC today. You saw it when you came in. And there was a commentator there, a female commentator, saying, gee, Iran really acted well here. You got to give them some credit. Yeah, give Iran credit, right, after you kill hundreds of thousands of your own people, after you put people in Iran prison, torture them. I have clients, one deceased, Akbar Mohammadi, and manager Mohammadi, who were the student leaders who started the regime change movement in 2009, the new one. Akbar was tortured, he was mutilated, body dragged through the streets, manager had his genitals burned, he later escaped. Miraculously, he went to his brother's funeral and fled to Turkey, and and was brought over here.
Anytime you have to say fled to Turkey, it's already bad.
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
Fled to Turkey.
And CNN International yesterday had the woman
I'm just saying,
on.
these people are barbarians.
No, it's
They're
absolutely
barbarians.
stone cold. And CNN International yesterday had on the woman from that was made famous by with the hostage situation as being the speaker for the Ayatollahs. They had her on yesterday as I don't know what they had her on as, but they didn't label her as the woman terrorist that was the spokesperson for. And here's the sad part. We were talking before. We were eating dinner. We were shooting the proverbial shoot, and we were talking about reading and people most and this isn't a matter of being smarter or whatever. Most people sadly learn their information now from movies, right? So you have let's say a movie like Argo, right, which was a good movie. Ben Affleck did a good job of
For him,
of
he's the worst actor in Hollywood.
of taking a movie and really fictionalizing it. But many people out there believe that was the actual thing of events. And you have and there's a debate in there about the Shah. They should return the Shah and the prisoners will be free. And most people don't understand what Iran was pre-1979. And that's frightening, that they don't know that it was an actual, as close to, it wasn't a theocracy. It was somewhat cross between a dictatorship and a democracy. It was like a dickocracy.
Well, actually, I know a lot about Iran. I've had many Iranian clients. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I'm talking about the ones who actually want to make change.
Okay.
Yeah.
The ones who decided they don't want to be Muslim anymore. They wanted to be either Zoroastrian or Christian or Jewish or whatever they wanted to be. They completely revolted from the system. And they taught me a lot about Iran. Okay. And, the Shah, and I read his autobiography that he wrote when he was in exile here, was a very enlightened person.
Yes.
Okay. He believed in religious liberty. Jews could, worship over there.
It was a
Christians,
beautiful place.
Christians, to the extent that he had the Savak. He was being threatened by the Soviet Union. And they had to clamp down. I'm not justifying everything he did, obviously. I mean...
can I tell you something? I am. And you know why I'm going to justify everything he did? Because you look at what the Middle East is like when we've removed brutal dictators. What is created? In this case, we...
And let me just throw something in here, and then go for where you're going. One of his downfalls resulted from the fact that he did allow for free speech. He allowed people into universities, like you have out here in California.
Yeah.
Okay, to say and do whatever they want. Okay, and it caught on, and the Ayatollah took advantage of that. He was living in Paris at the time, and he got a big following. I'm simplifying things, and obviously they overthrew the Shah. But the Shah, and particularly the Shah's father, who was much tougher than the Shah, probably wouldn't have fallen if the Shah's father was
Papa Shah.
Still like Papa Shah. Yeah, the Shah was a great man, and so he gets vilified. He was thrown under the bus by Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, well,
who
wasn't thrown under the
and
bus?
that's why that
Jimmy
movie by
Carter.
Affleck was fractured fairy tales.
Yeah.
Okay, the leftist part of Affleck, which is the total part of Affleck, came out. And they deified Jimmy Carter and everything else. And the reason that Zbigniew Brzezinski, the father of the moron, who's on MSNBC right now.
And you would use the word anti-Semite, an absolute anti-Semite.
Right.
He just
Brzezinski's
died.
theory was he convinced Carter that if you brought the Shah back into power and you deposed the Shah, that because these religious fanatics were going to take hold, they would fight communism. Well, you know what? They're worse than communists. They're, the regime.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to be.
No, I mean, but this is the part you're talking about. People do not. I mean, it's a fascinating thing that as Americans we're not taught history, or we're taught
geography.
We're not taught. We're not right. We're not taught geography.
Forget history.
Right. That's right. Most people.
We're
can't.
still at Pangea in most American elementary schools.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a frightening thing, and this isn't this. It's sort of like if. When I got sober. When I got sober, somebody said to me, "You're going to hear a lot of stuff, right? You're going to hear a lot of people saying a lot of different opinions." And somebody said to me, "If you're ever curious, read the book, because if it's in the book, it's applicable. If it's not in the book, it's just some schmuck's idea, And that's really where we're at. Is we have, it's like Paul Krugman today. This is a true story.
What a despicable human being.
He claims that somebody hacked his IP address and with child pornography. And he
just happened to have child pornography on his.
That it was through his IP address that somebody hacked his.
Let me just say, and I do not share his politics. I would not be surprised if that were done by someone intending to set him up.
100%. But you don't need to set Paul Krugman up.
Yeah. This is the guy who said after the 9/11 attacks that Enron would have the demise of Enron would have a more lasting impact on the state of America and the economy and culture and foreign policy than the attacks on the towers and the Pentagon.
The same guy that predicted that the second Trump won, the economy was going to go down. And this is who students across America in universities are learning from. And I don't.
Yeah, and I might add, this is something which we can say that non-Jews can't say. The Jewish left is a threat, not just to Jewry, but they're a threat generally. And Krugman's part of that Jewish left.
It's a very, and I got to say, it's a very hard thing to talk about. It's a very hard thing to write about.
And most Jewish people are not of the Jewish left. I've started something. Go to Freedom Watch, the coalition of the Jewish right, because this Jewish left is fomenting a backlash which is increasing the anti-Semitism in this country. I believe that.
Well, it's been going on for the better parts. You have college professors that romanticize Trotsky. I mean, and Trotsky was an absolute... And Marx, right. Stone Cold.
Linsky.
Yeah.
The Weather Underground, and a whole lot of them. Norm Chomsky. And that's just for starters. Look who's on... Look, I'm not anti-Semitic, okay? But
it's okay if you are.
No, but if I tell you something.
You're the loyal opposition.
The Jewish left could turn me into an anti-Semite. I mean, that's the irony. You remember the Woody Allen movie Zelig?
Yes,
they asked him why he became a chameleon, and he said because the next door neighbors were anti-Semites, and worse, my parents sided with the anti-Semites.
Listen, here's the problem. You're right, and there's been no better friend to the Jews, to Israel, or to Israel than the evangelical community in America, and they must look at themselves and go, I mean, what the heck is going on here? I don't get it.
People ask me all that time, what's the matter with the Jewish people? I say, it's not the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a minority, the same group of people that brought you Marx, Trotsky, Linsky.
Yeah.
Hitler, one of his grandfathers, had thought he was Jewish.
Well, that's a rumor.
Yeah, that's a rumor. That's the same rumor that you said.
That's like alligators in the sewers in New York City.
But here's the thing, and I'm happy you're bringing that up, because the way they're showing this Soleimani guy, the way they're using him as in martyrdom, is like saying like Mengele was but a scientist. Today, I mean that if Nazi Germany was around at the time, if the left today was in power with the advent of social media, they would be saying that Joseph Mengele was a scientist, Eichmann liked trains, and Himmler Himmler liked gas.
They certainly would take that position if Trump was against them.
That's exactly right, and it's frightening that this is what bothers me more than anything. You can't be gay in Iran. You can't be a woman in Iran. You can't be free in Iran. This is who the left is.
But you can't eat hummus.
Good hummus, and we could say hummus. And but Louis, don't you? I mean, it's an attraction. I mean, it's.
Well, I tried being gay in Iran and it didn't work.
You could try again.
Yeah.
Well, you know what they do in Iran? They actually advocate you becoming, switching your sex if you're gay. They force that.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is this actually? Is this 100% the truth?
No, assuming you survive.
Okay.
Assuming you survive. But here's what's really sad, and let's talk about Beverly Hills. I know that there's 2 Persian communities in this country, Iranian communities, one in Washington, a big one, and one here. And I wish that the Iranian community in Los Angeles, and there's over 1 million Iranians, they call it Tarantulas, okay, because of that. I wish they became active. I wish they realized that, that their country that they came from is an anathema to the world and became more of an activist. But there's only a handful of Iranians out here that actually
I'm absolutely
care.
in favor of repatriation from Beverly Hills. If we want to save the
for that matter,
architecture.
anybody.
No, but and getting back to come full circle, this is sort of the Ricky Gervais point when he was lecturing Hollywood. If you're going to speak, know what you're speaking about. If you're going to come on like that dimwit Patricia Arquette and say something about us in Iran, know that if you're Patricia Arquette, you can't be Patricia Arquette in Iran. This is the lack of critical thinking that drives me up the wall. You can make a movie about Iran, but you can't make that movie in Iran. And I'm not saying, did they not realize, like Wonder Woman probably wasn't shown in Iran because it was starring an Israeli actress, and if it was, they probably put a shawl on her.
Well, remember that King David's wife, Esther, was a Persian Jew.
It's good to.
Yeah, she would be banned today. She'd be killed.
And that's a little old school knowledge. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Larry Klayman, for imparting that on us. But that's what drives me crazy about this stuff, though, is that it's like I had written about this a long time ago. I wanted to start a program. Like how there's Doctors Without Borders, Protesters Without Borders. If you have a problem with anything in America, go to that country and protest.
Well, exactly. I'd like to see the Jewish left live on the West Bank.
That's exactly right. And I'd love to see Patricia Arquette go flaunting around in her glasses and telling and bringing her whole family with her, including sadly one of there was a transgender that killed herself in the family or died. And I'm saying that necessarily. I'm not happy for that at all. But go live there. Go live there for a week and see how accepting these cultures are of you. And it's a scary thing. And you guys went to the university systems. How did you went to Duke, you went to Emory. How did you guys come out?
We both went to Emory.
We both went to Emory. We went to the law school.
You went to, right.
Yeah.
So you both went to Emory, you went to Duke.
Undergrad.
I went to, I won't mention where I went. And
you went to the School of Hard Knocks.
I went to the school of Ben Stein. And
that's pretty good because Ben's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a pretty good school to have gone to. And you know what the greatest thing my teacher taught me? The greatest thing. It's okay to
eat food at Mr. Chell.
Yes, and to say I don't know, and
that's the most important thing.
That is the most important thing.
When's the last time you heard someone say I don't know?
I don't know. It's like Ben's an economist, and people often say to him, "So what's up with the economy?" He's like, "I don't know, but it's doing okay."
That's a conversation I'd love to have with him because economics is not a science. If it were, we would never have recessions or depressions.
Right, and that's
because we know the formula.
Yeah, it's
a social science and a bad one.
And most people don't realize that his father was a famed economist that helped save the economy of Israel, and also would say, I don't know why. That anybody that's saying what they do know or they don't know. But how did you guys come out of the university systems? Well, I wouldn't say normal, but how did you guys come out thinking differently? Because you must have felt so isolated. Lewis first, because you must have felt extremely isolated.
Well, I think I would have felt more isolated if I was in college at a time when there was social media. That wasn't the case. So, because you wouldn't even have an outlet there. Everything would have been foreclosed to you. I just I gravitated toward, or people gravitated toward me, who it's not so much that they shared my opinions on every issue. It's just that we were independent thinkers.
Well, when I was at Duke, that was 1969 to 73. Duke was right of center at that point.
Yeah.
Now Duke has become the Berkeley of the South. It's gone off the rails. I wouldn't send any of my kids to Duke today. No. And but it was different then. And basically, the big issue on campus was whether we could cohabitate, not the Vietnam War. I didn't see any protests against the Vietnam War, and I was a stupid kid. I probably should have been protesting.
Yeah.
I was number 120 as I got out of Duke, and I could have been drafted if Nixon hadn't ended the draft.
And I love that. But how many people, so in hindsight, we're able to look right as a country at the Vietnam War and say it was it was a mistake, right? I mean, everybody could agree the Vietnam War, we should not have gotten into the Vietnam War, just much like the Iraq War, right? Most normal people that were pro that war at the time, that believed that the government was telling us, believed it was a good decision, right?
Well, both wars
because
were winnable.
That was the
Well, had we
excuse me, guys, but that was the beginning of when the faith in government ended. We believed at that time. Okay, I was coming out of high school, that the president was enlightened by God, that he was in fact speaking for God, and that if he told you something, it was true. And it turns out Lyndon Johnson was a pathological liar. One of the worst presidents of my lifetime, I believe. Killed 55,000 Americans, hundreds of thousands maimed, and he created the situation at the Gulf of Tonkin, which he used to get into that war. And then they lied continuously with General Westmoreland as to how many Viet Cong we were killing, when they were killing more of us than we were killing of them. And this thing went on and on and on. And it was a giant lie. And now everything's made in Vietnam.
And just like we learned just last week about Afghanistan, right? Or 2 weeks ago, that they've been lying to us for the past 20 years. I was talking to Ben about this. I don't know how that was not the biggest story last year. If anybody else were the president but Donald Trump, the fact that every administration for the last, basically for 20 years, they've been lying to us about how well we were doing in Afghanistan. I mean, and we could all see. I mean, there's no we're still there.
What's the old joke? How can you tell a lawyer's lying?
Right.
He's moving his lips.
Right.
Same thing with the government. There's nothing that comes out of the government which is truthful. And that's the thing about Trump. Granted, he, shades things every now and then and whatever, okay? But
A bit.
People know where he comes from.
Yeah.
And he says what he believes, okay? You may not agree with
He
it.
believe what he believes at that moment.
Can you believe anything come out of the mouth of any Bush?
No.
I mean, I'm talking about George W. Bush.
Yes, I
was confused.
Yeah.
I mean, who didn't have a clue what he was talking about. That's his defense.
Yeah.
The highlight of his career is when he dodged a shoe in Baghdad.
No, but
it was kind of good, actually.
No, but you're right. It's really funny. It's like Donald Trump changes his mind a lot. He changes his opinion from day to day. But that's what
But this is the thing about the obsessives, the people that hate him.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't follow him on Twitter. I'm not immersed in this world, and the same is true for the Obama presidency.
You do have a tramp stamp though that says "Make America Great."
Right. So I was aware of the issues. I took interest in the issues, but I was not obsessed with the issues. And I should not be surprised, but I am nonetheless surprised by people who still fall for it. The obsessives who follow every tweet and they don't realize how predictable, this isn't a criticism of Trump, but how predictable he is. I know how any scenario or any fight, cyber fight, online contest of words between the president and his opponents or enemies will end. And what's amazing to me is that they don't know his MO. He's very predictable.
There's a method to his madness.
He's very predictable.
The fact that he said in the last few days, I'm going to bomb 52 cultural sites in Iran.
No, he didn't say cultural sites. He said I'm going to bomb 52 sites.
Basically,
Some
what
of
he was
them
saying
happen to be cultural sites.
What he basically was saying, I'm going to bomb 52 mosques.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Now, whether you believe him or not, the uncertainty that creates
Yes.
in Iran, they believe that the lunatic may actually do that.
Especially after he took out
and
their
it
number
worked.
2.
And that was Nixon's MO too. People thought that
Yeah,
he
that
could
theory.
push
Yeah.
he could push the button at any time. And so he keeps them off balance. And I'm not sure he doesn't do that on purpose. He knew he couldn't bomb cultural sites.
You don't, here's the thing about
mosques.
about the president. You don't last to the age of 74, and people will never understand this unless you're from New York. You will never last. You don't last to his age in the New York State real estate business if you're not all there.
And you don't last eating at McDonald's and fast food all the time either.
Or doing business in Atlantic City when there were certain people that still ran Atlantic City.
Or doing business with the mafia that if you cross them will kill you.
Yeah, I want people to understand something. I grew up.
The mafia is the gambling industry.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I want people to understand, because we are running a little bit out of time. And growing up, I grew up an Orthodox Jew. I'm not an Orthodox Jew anymore, but I have no animus towards it. I have a deep respect, actually, for people that find spirituality and religion however they want. But one of the things that I was always fascinated by, and I still am to this day, was I used to watch these, like, it was like groups of like 4 people studying the Talmud, right? And I was never a great Talmud scholar. I wasn't good at it. Give me a Yankee scorecard, I was great. Argue Billy Joel versus Elton John, always Billy Joel, because he wrote his own lyrics. And
Billy Joel was Jewish, by the way. Is.
Yes. And I used to watch these people argues and studying the Talmud, and they would eat these things called Reisman's cakes. It was like a kosher cake, and I used to watch them.
Yeah, we had that in Philadelphia.
And I used to watch them thinking in the beginning, oh my God, they're fighting with each other. Then I realized they were just arguing the law with each other. And then I used to see those same people going out to eat afterwards. And I felt something, I to this day, I find that so romantic. I find the idea of like us sitting around, or whoever it is out there sitting around, being okay to argue. It's okay to argue whether you believe in abortion or you don't believe in abortion. It's okay to argue about bathrooms, if whatever the heck, it's okay. And then to walk away afterwards and eat a piece of Reisman's cake. And if one person, 2 people could just start,
first we eat, then we talk.
First we eat, then we talk. Yeah. And then we could eat again.
Right.
And then we get a little nosh afterwards. And it's the only people that are capitalizing right now on this discourse are the cable news networks and the people that still want to be senators.
This is my
and
new book.
congressmen.
This is my new book. I spent a lot of time over the holidays thinking about what I'm going to write. And it's going to be called It Takes a Revolution, a little play on Miss Hillary, my favorite. Forget the scandal industry. It's become a reality series on all networks. Fox, MSNBC, CNN, the rest of them. It's an industry, okay? And this industry feeds itself to the point where I've stopped watching cable TV, except for the Golf Channel, because there's at least some reality there.
There's a really good show, though.
If you hit a good shot, you're rewarded. If you hit a bad shot, you're penalized. Whereas when you walk into a court today, you don't know what you're going to get, because you've got these federal court. State judges are much better. You get political hacks. And that really offends me. And I've said this. I'll end with this thought.
I got lucky. Not all judges
I don't agree with violence. I don't advocate it. I want a peaceful revolution. But figuratively speaking, when the revolution begins, the first taken to the guillotines should be the federal judges.
Okay, and
So this was our last show, and I'm gonna miss you, Larry. I'm gonna miss you. And we are gonna visit you.
It's really
no,
funny.
no. I said figuratively.
It's not really funny, but I had to be in court with Larry a couple weeks ago, and thank God the case went in my favor. But exactly the week after my court case, the George Zimmerman thing started trending on Google of Larry suing Trayvon Martin's family, and all I could think was, thank God this happened the week after I got out of court. And I just want people to realize, go out there, eat your Reisman's cakes, argue as much as you need to, read as much as you need to. But that's the only way.
By the way, we won your case.
Yes, we won my case. And Larry is 1 for 100 this year. And power to the Judah, power to the Larry, and I want people to. I really, if anything, I want people. It's like for American Greatness, which is an amazing news site. Go to that news site and read the differences of the readers, the differences of the writers, and all of these different things. And I really want people to realize that it's okay to argue, it's okay to scream, it's okay. But as long as you and Washington, that's the problem. They used to at least fake getting along, Now we could see they really don't get along.
Well, it's not just they don't get along; they just lie through their teeth.
Yeah,
and it's so obvious. And if it wasn't so tragic and destroying this country, it would be a comedy show. It's an act. And I can't stand watching either Fox or CNN or MSNBC. I turn them off. I hear the news. That's it. I don't want to hear it.
Anyways, Lawrence has got to go.
Lewis.
Lawrence, Lewis, And
You know,
Judah.
I got to tell you, it was Louis Fine has got to get back to the library and return his books.
Yeah, I'm actually going to just walk home instead because I'm too tired.
I'm going to drive you. And
I think I'll walk.
It's not an offer. And Larry's got to get back to. I know you have important cases, and he really does. And I beg of you to go and read Larry's law cases. We're going to be talking about them in shows to come because Larry is the you know how Cuba Gooding Jr. in Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise was his ambassador of
You may want to pick a different example. He's currently being prosecuted.
Okay, yeah, he is. And Larry, you should
unjustly,
and you should defend him.
I would. I once got a call from Robert Downey Jr. when he was in prison for drug possession.
Larry is our ambassador of freedom. And with that, stay tuned for the next episode of Larry Claiming for All. You can find us on Twitter at LK, the number 4, everyone. You can find us on Facebook at LK4 everyone. And you can find us on Instagram at LK4 everyone. And I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Louis Fine, one of the finest men I've ever met. And Larry Klayman, one of the greatest lawyers I've ever met. One of the greatest people I've ever met.
The greatest.
The greatest.
Okay.
You are the greatest. You're the greatest.
Right.
You're not the great one. You're the greatest one. You're the greatest one.
Well, I've actually done something. Mark Levin, I give him credit. He's a great orator and stuff, but he hasn't been in the trenches like me.
Nobody's been in the
orator.
Nobody's been in the trenches like you, Larry Klayman. So stay tuned for the next.
Buried in the trenches.
Okay, we got to end the show.
All right,
Larry. Enough.
See my bathroom.
It's my God. It's like I'm here with a bunch of.
By the way, one last point.
Yes.
If you want to see what I'm doing at Freedom Watch, go to freedomwatchusa.org or in my private practice, LarryKlayman.com.
If you want to see my private parts, you can go to. No, I got it all confused.
Yeah, and if you want to see,
I was going to do a public performance.
Yeah, and if you want to see me, I'm usually at Pavilions with Ben Stein at 4:00 and at shopping for smoked salmon
on South Beverly.
South Beverly. No. That's
the pavilions. There's a pavilion in South
Beverly. In West Hollywood.
Yeah,
oh, he's going there for you.
Yeah.
I can't even say what that joke means out loud, and if I think I understand it correctly, and but yeah.
Enough said. Shalom.
And when the man came around, and can I tell you something? Best Johnny Cash song ever written. When the man came around.
Don't know it. I don't know. I told you I don't know music.
I got. You know what? It's my mission, Louis, is to get you to because I
like music criticism.
Johnny Cash was great.
Johnny Cash. Was
no,
great.
I know he was great.
And he wrote this song. It's actually really.
I'll tell you who was great was Kenny Rogers with the chicken.
Oh, can I it's really funny. Like Kenny Rogers is to like music, like to jazz. Like any guy that lies.
The Kenny G of country music.
Yeah, but like when people say I like jazz, and I've always wanted to meet these guys.
I love jazz.
So you like
Just remember Janis Joplin and Chris Christopherson shifting to different genre of music.
He was a good actor,
One of the great lines, freedom ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. That's where we are right now. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. We have to do a peaceful and legal revolution to restore our country.
And with that, we're done.